everyone, and thank you for attending tonight's Getting Our Children School Ready session. My name is Shireen Palladino and I'm part of the early years team at the Nillumbik Shire Council. Before we begin tonight's session, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which we are meeting tonight and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here with us tonight. I pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging. In tonight's session, we will have 3 clinicians presenting on the skills children require when commencing primary school. We have Venetia Su, a speech pathologist, Claudia Harris, who is an occupational therapist, and Jason Lam, a psychologist. To commence this session, I will hand you over to Noelle Hart, who is the coordinator of our early years team, to say hello.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. Sorry, I hope also that my connection is okay because I am a little bit out where the connection can be a little bit scarce at times. So as I was saying, I too would like to acknowledge that I'm meeting on the lands of the Boonwurrung people and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all are at the moment, and welcome any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here with us today. I also pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge all parents that are here, 102 I see at the moment and may be expected to climb. We are expecting over 200 tonight. So I would like to acknowledge everybody who has had a really, really challenging year, hopefully rewarding in some respects, but also acknowledging it's been a really challenging year for families who have young children and have been trying to balance life with homeschooling throughout this year. So congratulations to you all for making it through, and hopefully we're on the other side and that your children are enjoying being back in somewhat normality as far as their education is going. I don't have much to say tonight except for the reassurance to let you know that you're not alone. There's many parents out there that have concerns about the lack of kindergarten that your child has been able to attend this year and how that's going to prepare them for school. The Department of Education have been also giving this a whole lot of thought, and what I'm really just here to tell you is that they are looking at their prep program. They are reassuring families through their documentation and through all the early years sector at saying that they will be adjusting their prep program for 2021. The prep program will look far more like a play-based learning environment, as is the kindergarten environment, than it would normally look under normal circumstances. So please be reassured by that. They are also putting out a whole range of publications about school readiness and what that looks like and how that doesn't need to just come from a centre-based sort of education environment at the moment, and how you can help support your child to be ready in this last term. So I'd really recommend going onto the website or contacting one of us to forward some information on to you if you need some additional reading. Also to let you know, in terms of second year funding for children, for families who are considering whether or not the lack of attendance this year, they should be considering their children having a second year of kindergarten. The department's view on that is, by accommodating those children in the prep year, there should be no need for a second year of funding. They will still be using the same guidelines that they've used in the past years of children having to show that they are challenged or not meeting the developmental stages in 2 different areas of development to have that second year of funding. So, please just prepare your children. I hope you get a lot of information from our partners at Health Ability tonight, because they're the experts in this area. And as always, feel free to contact us for anywhere else that you can get some information. So enjoy the session.
Hi everyone, I'm Venetia, the speech pathologist, and I just want to really thank everyone for joining us tonight. We are overwhelmed by the numbers and we really appreciate you taking your evening out to spend with us. So starting school is a really exciting time for our children. They get to wear a new uniform, meet new friends and teachers, and they start going to big school. There are so many school readiness checklists out there, but sometimes I find that in spite of knowing what our children can and cannot do, it can be so hard to find ideas about how to practically help our children prepare. It's been a particularly unusual and challenging year with lockdowns, closures of playgrounds and school tours, and even kinder closures impacting on our preparation for our kids' final year in preschool. As a parent of a daughter also starting school for the first time next year, I really identify with the stress, excitement, and maybe even the anxiety that you might be feeling. We hope that our presentation tonight will help to ease some of the anxiety that parents might be facing and hopefully be able to give you some practical things to do at home. So tonight I'll talk about school readiness, in particular the areas of communication, speech, and preparation for literacy, which is also known as reading and writing. The aim of this evening's session is to help you feel a bit more comfortable about knowing where your child is at, but also to give you some active steps to help them to continue developing in the months before and after starting school. Now, school readiness as a concept comprises of a number of areas, including socio-emotional maturity, functional communication skills, which include speech and language, early literacy and numeracy skills, motor skills, both fine and gross motor, independent skills like self-care, and cognitive functioning, also encompassing executive functioning. Now, tonight we'll cover all of these areas and explain what these rather technical sounding headings are, with Claudia, the OT, covering the umbrella category of independent skills, Jason, our psychologist, talking about cognitive skills and socio-emotional maturity. We will finish at the end with about 20 minutes to answer any questions that you may have, which you can put in the chat box as we talk. But first, I'll talk about why functional communication skills and early literacy skills are important at school. Now, functional communication is important for a lot of the same reasons that they are now. At school, a child needs to be able to ask an adult or friends for help. For example, they may need to say, I need the toilet, I need help with my lunchbox, or simple things like, can you pass the glue stick? They may express being upset or angry. He pushed me, I have a sore tummy, or I need a break. Suddenly, they need to understand instructions that are a lot more complex and have a few more steps than those given at preschool. Something along the lines of, after you get your books from your bag, open them to page 5 and put your hand in the air to show me that you're ready. There are also lots of new rules to understand. Keep your hands to yourself, or always try your best, or in a right-angled triangle, the square of the long side is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides. So I just put that one there because it makes me laugh. Not really that your children will have to understand that in prep, yeah? Now, for them to make and keep friends is important as well. So friendships in the playground start to become a lot more complicated as children get older. They need to start learning how to effectively negotiate social relationships, asking to join in play or invite someone to play. Being able to comment or take turns and giving a compliment or maybe even telling jokes or knowing why or when we should and shouldn't laugh becomes really important in primary school. For safety reasons, they also need to be able to say, please stop or no more in order to develop a sense of control of the environment. Now, what is expected speech and language-wise at 4 to 5 years old? As I go through the below points, have a think about how far your child has come in the past year, in spite of COVID, and just how much they have developed even though they have been home a lot more. A lot of our families are telling us that their children have made huge leaps simply from spending more intensive time at home with their parents and siblings. Now, a child at 4 to 5 years of age should be able to understand 3-part instructions, such as put on your shoes, get your backpack, and line up outside. They should start to understand time concepts pretty well. So concepts including before and after. So before I give you this, can you please wash your hands? They should start thinking about the meaning of words when they're learning. And they should understand instructions without pausing for too long to listen to them. Children should begin to understand and recognize some letters, sounds, and numbers, but I do want to stress that they don't need to go into prep with all their letters and numbers, as this will be taught in the first year. Understanding and using language. Children at this age should also use well-formed sentences to be understood by most people. They start to take turns in increasingly longer conversations. And they should be able to tell simple and short stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end. They're starting to use past and future verbs correctly. So instead of saying clap or clap, they should be saying I clapped my hands, or I will go to the zoo tomorrow. They should be able to start providing clarification as well. So when they are not understood the first time, they should be comfortable repeating themselves or trying to explain it in another way when someone doesn't understand them the first time. Now, speech-wise, what can most children do at this age? So when we talk about speech, we're referring to what is more commonly known as pronunciation as opposed to language. A child at 4 to 5 years should be understood nearly 100% of the time by familiar listeners. So they should start recognizing also that spoken sounds can be matched to written letters. So as I said before, they don't need to know all their letters, but they should start to recognize that letters make sounds. They may be able to tell you the first sound and letter in their name. What are kids still finding difficult? So kids are still finding saying words with TH sounds like thumb or this quite tricky, and this will be hard for them until 7 to 8 years of age. They might still have what we call an interdental lisp. So that's where your s sound sounds like a th sound. It has S sounding like a TH. So a word like sandcastle may still sound like fancastle. R sounds may sound like a W. So a word like red might sound like wed, carrot like carrot. And this is normal until 6 years. Long words with many syllables and consonant clusters are tricky for them. So your child might actually get the order of words like diplodocus or escalator incorrect. So a word like escalator, for example, might sound a bit like escalator. And what we get commonly is children saying the word spaghetti, paschetti. How can we help them? So this is the practical stuff that we can do. Help your child to identify other children who are going to the same school. Try to arrange for playdates, even virtual ones in this climate, even after they start next year. Explicitly teach them words that will frequently be used at school, especially if any of us are from another culture or country. Things might be called a different name in Australia. For example, it took me a while to figure out that texta referred to markers and greylet referred to pencil, for example. Help your child to learn the names of other children and teachers and ways to express their key needs and wants. So encourage them to talk about what they think and feel so they can express themselves with their new friends and teachers. You can explicitly teach some of these children to say, Miss T, can I go to the bathroom if you need a toilet break? Read with your child often. Just enjoying books with you develops early reading and spelling skills and helps encourage a love of reading. When reading with them, talk to them about the story. Point out any new words that you find and ask lots of questions. This will help with their comprehension, vocabulary, and language skills. Play games with them. So simple board games like Snakes and Ladders and card games like Snap or Go Fish are really good for practicing turn-taking, sharing, waiting, and learning to cope with not winning. Games like Simon Says are what we call language games. They are really useful for introducing important language concepts. So you might give an instruction, for example, like before you touch the door, jump on the cushion, or first ring the bell and then run to the couch. So these sorts of instructions tend to mimic the way that teachers in school give instructions. Make a homemade book together, or for those of us who've become a bit more tech savvy, make a PowerPoint presentation about going to school. Put in photos of the school grounds, uniform, teachers, principal, and what they call different house names and the names that they call different parts of the school. This book can be something that your child refers back to when they are feeling anxious about what's coming up. At the moment, many primary schools also have virtual tours of their schools up on their websites. Let your child watch this again and again and talk together about what you see. Sometimes kids may have issues with their speech and language that are beyond what you feel you can help with at home. If you notice any of the following concerns on this slide, it will be good to get an assessment from a speech pathologist to see if any strategies or treatment might be helpful. Your primary school might also be able to recommend some helpful resources. Some might even have a speech pathologist within the school. Now, if your child is already seeing a speech pathologist or other allied health professionals, I would recommend bringing this up with the principal or teacher when you meet them in person. and bringing along any reports you are given, as it's important for the school staff to know any difficulties that your child might have and any strategies that might be able to help them. So for example, maybe seating them in a spot where they will be less distracted, or buddying them up with a student who can model following instructions or language. This will avoid the delay in putting in place strategies or help needed, as the teachers may require a whole term to get to know your child well. Now, to talk about early literacy skills. A lot of us know that literacy is the ability to read and write, but what are early literacy skills? These are what children acquire before they actually learn to read or write, usually in the prep year of primary school. Without you realizing it, they are likely to have already started picking up some of these skills during the first 4 to 5 years of their lives. Research shows that young children going to school who have already developed early literacy skills do the best with reading and writing in the future. And with reading and writing being the basis of so much academic learning, these are definitely skills that we want to help our kids acquire. So what are they and how do we work on them? So I'll start first by talking about print motivation on the next slide. Print motivation is simply the interest in the printed word, whereas print awareness is the ability to recognize that words on a page make a combination of sounds which have meanings. Knowing that in English, words run from left to right and generally from the top to bottom on a page. We can develop this awareness by pointing out words to our children whenever possible and telling them what they say. You or your child might already be doing this, so they might be pointing out a stop sign or an exit sign. And when you read books together, I would suggest running your finger along the lines of the words, showing them which direction you are reading in. Vocabulary. Vocabulary is knowing the names of lots of different things. It's important before a child learns to read or write, in order for them to give meaning to what they are reading or trying to spell. Vocabulary can be built by reading lots of books on different topics. Books offer the unique opportunity to introduce names of things that we don't come across in daily life. For example, aliens, pufferfish, the life cycle of a butterfly, or a flying elephant in a circus. Borrowing library books about school may help your child to feel way more prepared about their new environment and journey ahead. And when they come across a new routine or situation at school, they may think, oh yes, I've seen recess or assembly in the book we read. This might be especially useful during this bizarre year when many of us have had to enroll for schools that we haven't even been able to tour in person. My own daughter didn't believe me when I told her that there are playgrounds at school and was quite excited to realize that there would still be some playing involved at big school. Now, narrative skills. Does your child ever try and tell you what happened in an episode of PJ Masks? Narrative skills are the ability to tell a story and use the appropriate vocabulary, describing words and sequence to tell you what happened during their day at school or how they fell over and hurt their knee at kinder. Getting our children to tell us what happened in a day, using more specific prompts and examples like, I was really happy when I met my friend for a coffee today. What made you happy? And using helper questions like who, what, when, where, how, can all be useful. If they're the sort of child who frequently says, I don't know, try giving them a little space and time to think before helping them out with what I call a sentence starter. So you might say something like, the best part of the day was, leaving a huge long space for them to fill in the blanks. Or, what was the worst part of your day today? The worst part was, again, let them finish off. When you're reading a book together, have your child predict what might happen next. Oh, the duck fell in the hole. What do you think will happen next? Letter knowledge. Letter knowledge is the ability to recognize and name letters, both upper and lowercase, and produce the sounds that they make. Now, we emphasize the importance of teaching sounds before letters. Although it's very common for parents and kinder teachers to start teaching some letters of the alphabet at this age, we encourage you to explain it in this way. S is spelt with an S, or C, rather than saying S makes the S sound. Why? So a very, very simplified example is in the word dog. Only knowing that the letters in dog are D-O-G expects a child to memorize the spelling of the word, which is fine in shorter words, or when a child has less than perhaps 1,000 memorized words. But when they start to rely heavily on context or guessing, after a while, rather than being able to sound out the word from themselves, d, o, g, which allows them to read words containing these sounds in other combinations, and also to attempt to spell it for themselves. Now, phonological awareness is the awareness of the sound system of our language. It encompasses being able to hear syllables, words, sounds in individual sentences and words. It also encompasses identifying words that rhyme, words that don't rhyme, such as flip, lip, and sip rhyme. Box doesn't rhyme with flip, lip, and sip. And listening to a word, being able to pick out the first sound in the word and the last sound in a word, and knowing what happens when you take them away or move them. So for example, in a word like tap, if I took away the first sound in tap, I get left with app. Or if I took away the last sound in tap, I have ta. Being able to blend individual sounds together to hear what word they make. If I gave you the sounds k, l, I, p, that makes the word clip. These are all skills required before or at least while a child learns about which letters correspond to sounds, as in traditional phonics. At Carrington Health and Health Ability, we run school readiness groups and programs that spend about 6 weeks explicitly teaching these phonological awareness skills to help our children with language and speech difficulties to get a bit of a head start on literacy learning and to overcome the effects of any delays that they may have had. We will be providing more information about this program at the end of the presentation. Now, I thought that we might try a little bit of these skills tonight. I initially thought about unmuting everyone, but that's before we found out that we had about 200 people attending. So I think we'll leave you muted, but if you wouldn't mind just participating with your hands up with me, that would be great. So that you can teach these skills to your children at home as well. Now, what you can help me do now is pretend to be a group of really well-behaved 4 to 5-year-olds going to school next year and do what I say. So some of your kids might also be into superheroes and Disney Ushis from Woolies, as my kids and I are. Superhero and movie character names are always really, really fun to use as they tend to be longer with more syllables, and they are very motivating for kids. So I spoke before about identifying syllables. So first we are going to practice clapping out the beats in these words. So put your hands up and do this with me if you can. Yep, so I'm just going to get you to clap out the sounds or beats you can hear in Superman. Let's go. Superman. All right, and now we're going to clap out what we can hear in Iron Man. Iron Man. So being able to hear that there are 3 claps in there is basically being able to identify syllables. Now, as your child gets more advanced with this skill and this becomes easy, you might even ask them, how many claps did you hear? So let's clap out how many claps we can hear in the word bluey. Ready? Bluey. How many claps did you hear in the word bluey? So if you can put your fingers up to show me. Great, 2. Now let's do something a bit harder. I'm going to get you to clap out the beats in Captain America. Ready? Go. Captain America. Now, who can tell me how many claps did you hear in Captain America? Captain America. 6. Did everyone get 6? Great job. Now, the next skill that you'll do at home with your kids is syllable blending. So this is where I give you the beats very, very far apart, and you need to tell me what I'm saying. So what you'll say to your children is, tell me the word I'm saying. Snow, man. And I might get Claudia to unmute herself so she can help tell me what word I'm saying.
Snowman.
Good job, Claudia. All right, the next one, Claudia. I'm going to say a word. Tell me what word I'm saying. Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Well done. Now, Claudia, I'm going to give you something a bit harder. Man, da, law, re, an.
I actually don't know. Can you try it?
Yeah, I'll go again. Man, da, law, re, an. We can tell that Claudia doesn't collect Ushis. I'm sure a lot of the parents will know what I'm saying. Mandalorian.
Oh, I don't even
Star
know.
Wars. I have no idea who he is as well. All right, so with this activity, it's important to leave about 5 seconds between the syllables, just so it sounds like separate beats, as opposed to saying it really quickly together like Darth Vader. That becomes really easy for your children to get. Now, the next one was identifying rhyme. So rhyme identification. The words you'll use in this activity are listen and tell me which words sound the same at the end. So listen and tell me which words sound the same at the end. Sing, ring, tan. Sing and ring sound the same at the end. So keep in mind that we're not saying they sound the same. We're saying that they sound the same at the end. Sing, ring. Rhyme is important for children to be able to do a bit of guessing with their spelling. So if they're able to spell the word sing and they know that the R sound is made with an R, they can then sort of perceive or predict that the word ring would be spelled with the same ending sounds as well. So you could give them something like block, lock, cake. The words block and lock sound the same at the end. Cake doesn't sound the same at the end. Rhyme generation is making silly rhyming words together. So you're saying to your child, these do not need to be real words. This is probably something that a lot of your kids are already doing. So you might start and play a game and say something like, I'm going to start, we're going to see how far we can get with this. Again, I'll get Claudia to help me. So I'm going to start and you come up with as many rhyming words as you can. Boo, shoo, to, goo.
Loo, poo, shoo.
Good one. All right, so kids tend to find this game particularly fun as they end up making some really silly and sometimes rude words. So your child's already doing this when they say things like, you silly Billy. They find the sound of the words fun because they are just somewhat poetic and they sound the same really at the end. Now, the next one is a little bit more complex, but this tends to be one of the more important ones that is a really good predictor of how your child does with literacy in the future. Initial sound identification. So this means being able to hear the first sound in a word. So for example, the first sound in the word cake is k. The first sound in the word fox is f. So keep in mind that we are not talking about letter names here. So it's not good enough or not as important for your child to be able to say that apple starts with A. That's a memorized skill as opposed to being able to hear the first sound in there. So now we're going to try this together with Claudia helping me again. Now, Claudia, can you please tell me what is the first sound you can hear in the word marvel? Well done. So she's not saying M. And if she did say M, I would say, yep, that's right. You can hear the M letter. What sound can you hear? And you would stretch the sound out, marvel, so that your child is able to perceive it a bit better. Now, Claudia, what's the first sound you can hear in the word Rapunzel? And the first sound in scarlet. Fantastic, well done. All right. Now, sound blending goes down to an even smaller unit of speech sounds. So the skills that we talked about before, these are things that you really want to be getting one at a time. So you wouldn't move on to the next one before achieving the one before with your child. And as I said, this takes us about 6 weeks or longer for our children in our groups to acquire. So sound blending, when I put these sounds together, what do I get? K, a, t. Does anyone know?
Cat.
Cat, well done. If I said these sounds, what do I get? If I put these sounds together, but,
Book.
book, well done. R, e,
Rip.
rip. So again, we're leaving 3 to 5 seconds between the sounds for your children to try and put together. All right, well done, everyone. Thanks for listening. Most of you are probably able to go to school next year. So I'll now pass you over to Claudia Harris, our occupational therapist, but I'll speak to you again at the end to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Venetia. I'm just going to check that there's no one in our waiting room. So sorry, I'm just going to exit out the PowerPoint for a quick second. Whoops. Somehow. Okay. All right, perfect. So as I said, thanks Venetia for that first part of our program. So hi everyone, I'm Claudia Harris and I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. Today I'll be discussing and providing some strategies for some of the functional and emotional skills children require when commencing school. School readiness is determined by looking at a range of developmental and cognitive skills, one of which is socio-emotional maturity and resilience. So what do we mean by this? Well, in relation to school readiness, it is important to see what your child is currently doing based on these questions. Can your child separate easily from a parent or caregiver at preschool drop-off? Is your child able to independently make a decision of where they are going to work or play? Is your child able to self-initiate, engage and sustain their engagement in a task for at least 6 to 8 minutes? Does your child have the skills to solve basic problems and ask for help from the educator if needed? Can your child work and play besides other children and form friendships with their peers? Does your child have basic independent skills, for example, being able to dress and undress and toilet independently? Is your child able to sit with the group, for example, during mat time, and remain focused and ask and answer questions from the educator? Can your child self-regulate their emotional response when they need to do something? So for example, if they don't want to pack up, they might not throw a tantrum and just get on with the task. Can your child deal with new and unpredictable routines and situations? Has your child developed assertive behaviour? And lastly, can your child be involved in interactive and cooperative play, for example, being able to follow the rules and develop turn-taking skills? All these skills are vital to have when your child commences school. This is because socio-emotional maturity and resilience equals effective communication and language skills. Numeracy skills. Another set of skills children require for school are numeracy skills. Numeracy skills include the following: being able to observe, compare, and contrast objects by understanding size, shape, and patterns. Number familiarity, which refers to being able to count verbally and recognize numbers. An understanding of quantities. For example, if you offer your child 2 or 4 chocolates, they know that they'll be getting more when accepting 4 chocolates. And lastly, one-to-one correspondence, which is a developmental skill that involves counting each object in a set once and only once with 1 touch per object. For example, a child who touches each toy car in a row and says the number name out loud for each car touched, 1, 2, 3, 4, is demonstrating the ability to count with one-to-one correspondence. Gross motor skills are those which require whole body movement and involve the large muscles of the body to perform everyday functions such as standing, walking, jumping, and sitting upright at the table. They also include hand-eye coordination skills such as ball skills, swimming, and riding a bike. So how can we help to develop these gross motor skills? There is a variety of ways to help improve gross motor skills. For example, hopscotch or other games that encourage direct skill practice, Simon Says for body awareness and movement planning, wheelbarrow walking races which target upper body strength and postural or trunk control, walking or climbing over unstable surfaces, for example over large pillows, as this requires a lot of effort and increases overall body strength, catching and balancing, for example, standing with one foot on a ball while catching another ball, as this encourages balance while also practicing catching and throwing. When commencing catching and throwing practice, you should begin by using a large ball or balloon, and only after that skill is mastered, then you could move to a smaller size ball. Obstacle courses are also great, as children usually love to complete them, and they combine a range of gross motor skills together. Taking your child to the playground to encourage climbing and swinging, and finally, swimming. Fine motor skills involve the use of small muscles of the hands, commonly used in activities such as using pencils, scissors, construction with Lego, doing up buttons, and opening lunch boxes. Fine motor skills are very important to develop prior to starting prep, as a lot of classroom activities involve these skills. These activities include drawing, colouring, cutting, pasting, and name writing. Drawing and colouring are great activities as it builds up hand strength, pencil control, planning skills, imagination, and visual motor integration skills. Doing these activities on a vertical surface are great to additionally develop upper body strength and pencil grasp. You can always do this by using a vertical chalkboard or a whiteboard to allow the child to draw this way, or even by sticking up a piece of paper onto the wall. By prep, your child should be able to draw a basic representation of a house and a person. So these, excuse my drawings, but these were just a few examples of some of the houses and the people that your child should be able to draw. So with a person, they should be able to be recognizable with a body and at least 6 body parts and some level of detail. So if they're putting some eyes and a mouth without some prompting, that's a great start. And then with the house, it's just putting some basic shapes together to make it somewhat look like a house. Some ideas to help your child who may be having difficulty developing drawing skills or who are reluctant to engage in drawing are: break down the steps into tasks. Talk to your child through a drawing. For example, what are you going to draw? It is important to not tell your child what to do, rather prompt questions for them to decide. Take turns to complete a drawing. For example, I'll draw this leg and you can draw the other leg. Doing parallel drawings where you both have a sheet of paper and you model the drawing for the child. Having your child complete a drawing that you have done. For example, draw a picture with something missing and then your child has to finish that picture. Tracing drawings. Using drawing aids such as simple drawings on separate cards which can be used to copy. And finally, it is always great to praise all efforts made by your child. And try and make the activities as enjoyable and fun so that the child doesn't feel like it's a chore and actually enjoys doing these kinds of tasks. By prep, it is also very important for a child to be able to recognize their own name and, if possible, write it. One of the best ways for children to start learning letters at this age is by using a multi-sensory approach. What this refers to is being able to integrate sensory activities for children and incorporate learning through many senses, such as hearing and touch. Some of the activities you can do with your child to learn their name is to make their letters out of Play-Doh, writing letters in shaving cream, finger painting, tracing over textured letters. So for example, you might have some sandpaper or some felt and that you could cut them out into the letters and have your child trace over them with their finger or with a pencil to get a lot of feedback. All these ways provide extra feedback to your child and can help with learning the letters in their name. Hand preference, or a dominant hand, usually starts to develop between the ages of 2 to 4. However, it is still common at this stage for children to swap between hands. Between the ages of 4 and 6 years, a clear hand preference is usually established. If your child does not use one hand as their preferred hand, do not choose or force them to use one hand. Instead, carefully observe your child while they are playing or doing everyday activities. You can make a note of whether one hand is used more or if one hand appears more skilled than the other. For example, observe your child drawing, writing, cutting, pasting, brushing their hair, brushing their teeth, eating, drinking, and doing other play activities. If your child does not have a clear dominant hand, it is important to encourage your child to consistently use this hand. If your child does have a clear dominant hand, it is important to encourage your child to consistently use this hand and then use their non-dominant hand as their helping hand in tasks. As for a child's grasp, it is important for them to start forming a more mature grasp. So if we have a look on the left-hand side of the screen, I've put a few different examples of grasps that are mature. And even though there is a lot of people who say that the dynamic tripod grasp, which is down the bottom left, is the best one to have. If your child is comfortable and able to write freely with the other grasps, then that is more than fine. You just want to try and avoid the immature grasps, which they would have began writing with. Using a thicker pencil can also help assist with grasp. If your child is able to write letters, try to make sure that they are forming the letters correctly and starting in the correct places. This skill will also continually be worked on more when they start school, as they will complete handwriting tasks. Another way you can help your child if they are unable to write their name is to write their name out so that they can trace over it. Guide your child on how to write the letter using consistent language. So for example, if we were writing the letter A, we might say it is a circle, a stick down, and then a flick. Trying to keep these words as consistent as possible for all letters is really beneficial. So if we were doing the letter J, you could say it's a stick down and flick. Please do not stress about your child needing to learn all the letters in the alphabet, as this is what prep is for. Cutting and pasting. Cutting and pasting is a really important skill to have for commencing school, as they will tend to do a lot of worksheets that involve cutting and pasting in prep. The first thing to focus on when practicing this skill is ensuring your child is holding the scissors correctly. That is, that the thumb is in the small hole of the scissors and either the remaining second, third, and fourth fingers are in the biggest hole, or that the pointer is outside the holes, helping to control the scissors. It is important to have a pair of children's safety scissors, as shown in the picture, which can usually be purchased from any stationery supply stores such as Officeworks. I also saw that there was selling some at Woolworths, so you might be able to get some from a local supermarket if you can't get to a stationery supply store. The next thing you want to make sure is that your child is holding the piece of paper correctly. Ideally, you want your child to be holding the paper with their thumb on top, and if they are cutting out a shape, that your child's thumb is holding the shape and is not on the side of the paper. Position the scissors so that they are cutting away from themselves and that their thumb is facing upwards. Sometimes a verbal script can help the child. For example, if they were cutting out a square, you might say, cut, 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 stop, turn, hold the bottom, cut, 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 stop, turn, hold the bottom, using very simple language. It is important to talk to your child about the speed in which they cut out shapes, as a lot of children tend to rush through cutting out, and this therefore reduces their control and accuracy. Some children can also become quite distressed if they cut off the line, and in this case, it is really important to just reassure them that having a go and trying their best is the best possible thing, and that it's not always necessary to cut on the line. Once your child has cut out the shape, it is then time for them to try and paste it down. Encourage your child to open the glue stick themselves, as we want them to be as independent as possible to replicate what they will need to know for school. It is always good to prompt your child, asking questions like, now what do we do next, rather than just telling them what to do. With all tasks, it is great to let your child pack up after themselves, including throwing away any rubbish, as this is what is also expected at school. Other ways that we can help with fine motor skills are bilateral integration, so practicing using both hands to perform tasks, not just one. So for example, the doing hand to place the block and the helping hand to hold the block construction steady. Finger isolation, so practicing tasks that use just one or two fingers and not all the fingers at once. So some poking games. Hand and finger strength. So enhance finger strength by using pegs or clips in play. Experience. Encourage enjoyment in activity participation instead of focusing on a successful outcome. Self-care skills are vital for children to learn in life, with some specifically needed for commencing school, such as toileting, dressing and undressing, personal hygiene, for example, nose care, following structured routines at home and in the classroom, and personal safety, for example, knowing about stranger danger. When commencing school, your child needs to be fully independent with daytime toileting when using both bladder and bowels. This includes being able to wipe their own bottoms fully, redress themselves, and wash their hands. If you are still working on toilet training with your child, some of the tips that may be helpful are the following. Ensure your child is getting at least 5 drinks a day, for example, at each mealtime: breakfast, morning tea, lunch, afternoon tea, and dinner. The majority of these drinks should be water, as this keeps bowel movements regular and soft and helps build good bladder capacity. Relax and don't make toilet training a big deal. Don't talk about it lots and don't keep repeatedly asking your child if they need to go to the toilet. It is also important to not tell your child that they will be a big girl or boy if they use the toilet, as for many children, becoming a big boy or girl can be quite frightening. Nighttime toileting is a longer process than learning how to use the toilet during the day. Your child may take longer to become nighttime toilet trained and therefore might need to wear pull-ups when commencing school. If you are still having difficulties toilet training your child, you can discuss this with an occupational therapist for further tips, which may also include recommending further advice from a GP or paediatrician. Dressing. Another self-care skill that your child needs to be independent in is dressing. So for example, your child should be able to take on and take off their coats, jumpers, pants, socks, and shoes with Velcro, laces aren't so important at this stage, by themselves. Dressing can be a challenging task to teach. It takes time to explain, coach, and assist children to dress by themselves. There are clothes to take off, put on, pull up, button up, zip up, and tie up, not to mention getting them around the right way. Sometimes it seems easier and faster to just dress your child yourself. However, it is important that children learn to take care of themselves. There are a few different strategies you can trial when teaching your child how to dress. The first one is the ask, say, do method. How this works is you ask. So you ask your child what the first step is. What is the first thing we do when we get dressed? If your child does not give you the correct answer, calmly tell them what to do. First, we put on our underpants. Do. If your child does not perform the task, help them with it. Let's sit down and put one foot into this hole. Guide your child's movements as required and let them do as much as possible by themselves. Repeat, ask, say, do for each step of the dressing process. And remember to praise your child for their cooperation and success at each step. Another strategy is backwards chaining. Backwards chaining is when you teach your child by having them begin at the task at the end. You start the first part of the activity and have your child complete the task. This way, your child feels a sense of achievement at completing a task and they progressively learn how to perform new tasks. Gradually, you do fewer steps in the activity and your child does more until they are able to do the job all by themselves. For example, if we look at putting on a t-shirt, the steps involved in this task are 1, finding the front of the shirt, 2, find head opening and orient around the right way, 3, pull t-shirt overhead, 4, find arm openings, the sleeves, 5, push arms through correct sleeves, 6, pull hem of t-shirt down over stomach. To teach using the backwards chaining method, you could do the following. Put the t-shirt on your child, explaining the steps you are performing as you go. Have your child pull down the shirt over his or her tummy, which is step 6. When your child has succeeded with step 6, have him or her do steps 5 and 6 next time they need to be dressed. So for example, you'll do steps 1 to 4 for your child, but have your child push their arms through the correct sleeves and pull the hem down of their shirt. Once step 5 and 6 are mastered, have your child do steps 4 to 6, finding the armholes, pushing their arms through and pulling the hem down. Continue as your child masters each step until they are able to complete all steps from 1 to 6. This technique is very valuable and can be used to teach your children many new skills, including using a knife and fork. Some other strategies you can try are making a picture chart, picturing the steps of dressing and stick it to the bedroom or bathroom wall. For example, underwear, shorts, skirt, socks, and then shoes. Playing games such as Simon Says to teach your child about body parts and to encourage the development of their body awareness. Think about the clothing you buy for your child. So some ideas include elastic waisted shorts, as they are easier than a button and fly. Ensure neck openings are not too hard to pull over the head. Choose socks with loose elastic and a marked heel. A few other points to also consider are the following. Think about the way you get dressed and undressed. What would be the simplest method to teach your child? Be consistent and always teach the same method. Talk to those who assist your child to dress about the method you're teaching your child so that they can use the same method. Remember that undressing is learnt before dressing. Begin by explaining to your child what you are doing as you dress and undress them. For example, I'm putting your shirt over your head. Teach one step at a time. Have your child sit down for dressing tasks. Give your child plenty of praise, even for small achievements. Choose a good time to dress, so if in the morning is too busy, try at night after bath time. Be patient, don't just jump in and do it all for your child. Lastly, play skills are very important for children, as it helps to develop planning skills, narrative skills, and social skills. By this age, play should involve more complex themes and storylines that are not just personal experiences. This could include themes such as spacecrafts, pirates, and princesses, which your child should be able to cooperate and negotiate during play. It is also important for your child to be able to use imaginary objects and object substitution in play. For example, a box could become a spaceship and a toilet roll could become a telescope. Children don't need to have fancy toys to develop these play skills. The less a toy does, the more imagination a child requires to interact with that toy. Some good things to have to encourage play with your child are dress-ups, boxes, including a large box, for example, from a food delivery, a blanket to make cubbies with, old household items, so for example, wooden spoons, mixing bowls, or old phones. Where possible, it is also very beneficial with your child to play with your child. Involve yourself in hands-on activities that get you down on the ground with your child. Ask questions to find out about the storyline your child is creating in their play and allow them to take the lead. As Venetia said earlier, play basic turn-taking games such as Snap, Snakes and Ladders, or Connect Four, as this teaches children to take turns and cope with the emotions of losing. Before I pass on to our psychologist, Jason, I'll just once more check if there's anyone else in the waiting area. All right, whenever you're ready, Jason.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So good evening, parents. Okay, my name is Jason and I'm a child psychologist at Health Ability. As part of my work at Health Ability, I conduct psychological and educational assessments for children to clarify their concerns in one's developmental trajectory, and also to provide counseling to children with significant emotional needs, such as childhood depression, anxiety, and academic stress. Today, I'll be talking about how to get our kids ready for primary school from a psychological perspective. I would like to begin by talking about what children are expected to do as they step into big school. Basically, children are required to adapt more formally to school culture, so meeting academic demands and complex social environments, with less support than they receive at home and are less surrounded by significant adults. To help children transition successfully, I will be emphasizing on children's cognitive skills and socio-emotional skills. Cognitive skill development in children involves the progressive building of learning skills such as attention, memory, and organizational skills. How can we prepare our kids to pay more attention in class? When a child learns to pay attention, it enables him or her to concentrate on one task or conversation for an extended period of time. Typically, younger children, younger than 5 years old, tend to have shorter attention spans that typically last 15 minutes or less. By the time children reach 8 years of age, they should have an increased ability to focus on one thing for longer periods of time and complete tasks. He also should be more adept at ignoring distractions. Some of you might be thinking, how difficult is it to pay attention for 15 to 20 minutes? This diagram here depicts the process of paying attention. In a brief 20 to 30 minutes circle time, a kid is expected to show a good listening position, which includes, quiet mouth and quiet body, listening to the teacher, looking at the whiteboard, observing other children while ignoring distractors in the surrounding. So there you go, it's not that easy. Good news is that parents can help their children develop the ability to focus by pointing things that seem important or interesting and then asking them to comment on their observations. For example, a trip to the zoo might result in some specific questions like, what animal was your favorite? Or what did you like about this animal? Questions like these help the child pay closer attention to what he is supposed to and also challenge their ability to choose specific words to describe their thoughts. Another essential element under cognitive skills is memory. It is the ability for children to put information they are learning together with their current knowledge base. It is in fact widely used across multiple situations. For example, when kids are expected to remember what to do and say when it's their turn to talk, when carrying out instructions, doing maths sums in head, reading an unknown word, and also how to respond appropriately when having a conversation. At 7 years old, majority of children's memory will still be implicit memories. So not about specific events, but instead of more of an unconscious emotional recollection of events. If your child experiences the following matters, they might have working memory difficulties. For example, if they have difficulty following instructions, lose track during complicated tasks, make place-keeping errors. So I'm talking about, skipping a line while reading, incomplete recall, and having trouble with activities that require both storage and processing. Memory training, as you might see in a lot of games or classes, usually trains kids to become better at those specific tasks. In fact, we should focus more on accommodating and compensating working memory limitations. For example, help kids break down tasks into smaller subroutines, don't provide too much information at once, ask kids to repeat what they've learned, prompt them with reminders, such as asking them what to do next, and teach them to create and use their own memory aids, such as mnemonics and rhymes. This activity here combines both attention and memory skills in children's cognitive development. The child is asked to remember instructions and also to pay attention to what he or she needs to identify. So pay attention to the words biggest, smallest, medium, and also the words in colored, blue, yellow, and red. So this actually makes them, use both their attentional skills and also the memory skills to participate in one event. Organization involves the ability to establish the tasks you need to do, by when and how. Part of organization is understanding the requirements of the task. As you can see, it is deeply rooted in play, language, social interaction, personal management, and academic task performance. Do we have to teach children to become more organized? Organization is typically a skill that needs to be specifically modeled, supported by sensible structures, such as using diaries or visual charts, and reinforced by realistic routines. This next page here shows an example of what we can do. While the child learns to become more organized for school by repeating them on a daily basis, they should also be shown how to do so in a home environment. A good strategy is to establish clear before and after school routine and to label the containers at home. Scaffolding is a technique used to help children learn new ideas beyond what they already know. Prior to primary school, there are really little things that are very challenging for our bright kids. Yet, as we enter prep, we see a change in the way information is given. We can help prepare our children to not be afraid of new tasks by the following steps. First of all, when you see your child, doing something, pay attention to what they're doing. Wait and listen. Allow your child to experiment with something new on their own. If your child seems frustrated, offer to help. To help, make a very specific comment about the problem, such as, that puzzle piece is too big, and a suggestion about the next step. For example, try putting a smaller piece in. Model new skills by showing your child how it is done. Help your child accomplish something by breaking the task into small, easier steps. Next, we can focus on supporting your child one step at a time. Remember to fix problems or mistakes without pointing them out. Most importantly, don't finish the task for your child and let them feel pride in their work. In our daily activities today, prior to entering school, it will be great if we can start practicing these techniques at home. Despite children's cognitive development, it is also important to look at socio-emotional skills. Social-emotional skills are skills to understand and manage how children act and how they relate to others and make responsible choices. Some examples are recognizing if someone is sad and asking if they're okay, expressing yourself with your friends in a different way than your parents, or understanding your thoughts and feelings and being able to relate to others. So starting big school represents a huge change for children and their families. The start of school is a time when a child experiences a range of different emotions, and these need to be processed carefully to ensure a smooth transition into school. Some children thrive with the new school environment, learning new academic skills and trying to establish new relationships with their peers, while other children will need extra support to settle in. For some children, they will feel proud to be a big kid. For others, the start of the school can be a mix of stress, anxiety, and nervousness. It is normal for children to fear the unknown and experience stress about leaving the secure and nurturing home environment. Children at this age may find it difficult to tell us how they feel, so it is normal for them to express themselves through a range of behaviors. At a time of major change like starting school, some of these behaviors are not unexpected. Some behaviors are easy to identify, such as tantrums, crying, while others can be much more difficult to notice, like being quieter or even more withdrawn than usual. It can be difficult for children to explain how they are feeling, so it is up to parents to help work out what feelings may be underlying the child's behavior. Understanding how your child is feeling and why they are behaving in a particular way can help you work out how to support them emotionally. So I have some guidelines here, just a few steps, okay? It is very important for parents to be positive and encouraging. Your child will inevitably have some questions or concerns about starting school. Although it is tempting to quickly reassure them and move on, such as saying, it's okay, or just move on, it is important to let your child know that their worries have been heard. Talk about what your child can expect when starting school and be calm. That is, for example, talk about how to greet friends, what to say if you want to become friends with another kid. Do not dismiss or ignore their feelings, but explore those feelings with them well in advance of the first day. A child's fears will arise from not knowing. Therefore, discuss the new things that will happen and reassure them. Let your child know it is normal to feel happy, sad, excited, scared, or worried. It is important to normalize their feelings by explaining that starting something new can feel scary and lots of people feel this way. Let them know that it's okay to feel nervous, okay? Other children will be feeling nervous too. It can be helpful to share a time when you as a parent started something new and how you felt. When you allow your child to share their worries, you can help them think through how to deal with them. Discussing what this new school routine will be like ahead of time can help to reduce any potential stress. Most children will start school not knowing many other children, so it may be useful to rehearse how to make friends. Your child will feel more confident by talking through and practicing some strategies for what they might do to get to know the other children better. Reminding them how they did this in situations in the past can also help. This is a big change in their lives. So the better prepared your child is, the more calm they will feel when they start. Once they start school, check in with your child and find out how they're feeling. The best time to approach this is when they're feeling relaxed. We should always answer a child's questions honestly and always be ready to provide reassurance when necessary. One common problem children experience is separation anxiety, which sometimes result in crying and throwing tantrums when they are dropped off. Again, if you think your child is anxious, the child won't be waiting till the day prior to the school to let you know he or she is anxious. Therefore, pay attention to their behaviors prior to starting school. If your child tends to get anxious about separating, you can do some of the following. For example, practice separation, leaving them with a caregiver for brief periods and gradually leave them for longer and travel further away from them. Develop a quick goodbye routine, so designing a special wave and to practice it through the window or with a goodbye kiss, but you have to keep it quick. Tell your child you're leaving and that you will return, then go without making it a bigger deal than it is. Lastly, follow through on promises. So at least for the first few weeks, don't be late when you need to go pick them up. Once children have become more comfortable with school, they will slowly learn how to regulate themselves, for them to be able to recognize their feelings and manage their behaviors accordingly. It sounds easy, but it's not. It will require them to attend to the information they're given, use it appropriately, and inhibit behavior that interferes with learning. For example, they might learn to disagree with other children without having an argument. To facilitate the process of self-regulation, talk about the development of emotions with your child. For example, did you throw your toys because you were frustrated that it wasn't working? What else could you have done? When your child struggles with a strong feeling, encourage them to name the feeling and what caused it. Wait until the emotion has passed if that's easier. Help your child find appropriate ways to react to strong emotions. For example, teach your child to take a break or get adult help when they feel overwhelmed. Say things like, let's relax, or I can help you if you like. Remember to be patient. It can be very hard for young children to cope when they have strong feelings. Give your children plenty of praising when he or she shows self-regulation and manages a tricky situation. For example, you were great at waiting for your turn, or I like the way that you shared with Sam when he asked. Try to model self-regulation for your child. For example, show your child how you can do a frustrating task without getting upset. You could say something like, wow, that was hard, or I'm glad I didn't get angry because I might not have been able to do it. In summary, there are a few recommendations that are essential in prepping our children for school. Remember that cognitive skills develop in stages. Typically, 8 years old is when they're finally adapt well to school matters. As such, your child will still require assistance from you. Secondly, use positive language to promote self-esteem and independence. Accept the fact that children will be excited, disappointed, and anxious at times with their experience at school. Talk openly about their feelings and validate their thoughts and feelings. Don't dismiss their experiences. Parents are encouraged to tune into the child's feelings and listen. Lastly, it's a good idea to speak with a professional if you're worried about your child's behavior or you're having trouble managing his behavior as they get older. For example, you could talk to your GP, your child and family health nurse, or your child's educator. Consider seeking professional help if your child is engaged in any of the following problems for a continued period of time. Remember, a mental health care plan can be obtained from your GP if you're looking to seek advice from a psychologist. That's all for today, and I'll pass back to Claudia. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. And yeah, as Jason said, there are multiple people who you can seek help and guidance from if you feel your child could use a bit of additional support. So we've got some contact details afterwards as well. I just wanted to touch base quickly on what Venetia said about our school readiness program. So last term at Health Ability and Carrington Health, we ran a school readiness program which focused on some of these topics we have spoken about this evening. It is a virtual program that runs for 6 weeks, and each week's task focuses on a popular children's book. A home package is sent out with all the worksheets and activities that we complete, and each week you receive an email from our organisation that has a PowerPoint presentation with that week's activities. In this presentation, there are also links to worksheets, videos explaining how to do the tasks, and a YouTube link to watch the book if you don't have it. We also ran a parent-clinician catch-up session, which basically consists of regular phone calls over the 6 weeks with either a speech pathologist or occupational therapist to provide support and strategies. This program will be running again this term, and if anyone is interested, feel free to contact Health Ability, or if you're from the Box Hill kind of region, you can also contact Carrington Health on the number below, which is 94309100. Or alternatively, you can send an email to myself or Venetia about any more information you would like about the School Readiness program, or if any School Readiness questions come up. We'll now go to questions. So I think we'll have the chat box up. I might stop sharing again.
A question for Jason. If a child is still having problems with separation from the parent at the beginning of kinder at this time of year, would you suggest making contact with a professional for help?
Yeah, I think first of all, as I said, when a child is worried, it's usually because there's an unknown factor. And I guess from a parent's perspective, a very good thing to do is spend some time with your child, asking what are they unsure about. Determining that is very important. If the problem has been persistent for a period of time, then I suppose yes, then you might be able to seek help from a psychologist and to deal with anxiety, and that would be a good idea. Yes.
I might just add in with that one as well. Venetia touched on it a little bit, but if you wanted to practice using social stories or social cues, kind of running through what the drop off and pick up would look like, that could also be a step that you might take before straight away going to get some additional help if you wanted to trial something before seeing someone.
Yep. So another question on social skills. What advice should I give to a child in regards to how to make friends? I usually suggest being friendly yourself and asking others if you can play with him, but many kids already have friends and tell him no. So from the communication side of things, one suggestion that we sometimes give and may sound a bit contrived is to do a bit of a role play with your child. So when we're asking someone to join in play, what comes across as more natural is sometimes commenting on what the other child is doing. So for example, if he's doing a train set activity, for a child to say, that looks like fun, or I have Thomas at home too, tends to come across a little bit more naturally rather than, just going, can I join in or can I play with you? That kind of question sometimes gets a bit of a rebuff, but if you were able to sort of teach your child to comment on what someone else is doing, or even pay them a little compliment. So I like your train, that looks like a cool train. That can sometimes be a bit of an in for the child to then go, can I play too? Yeah, so that's just a bit of 2 cents. And if Jason or Claudia had something more to say.
I guess the only other thing that I would add is sometimes like school environments are quite a bit different. Like everyone has to do the same activity, and people are more likely to be grouped in groups to do certain activities. Whereas at kinder, there's a lot of being able to pick and choose of what you wanted to do. So if you do find that sometimes it might be because maybe your child is trying to play in one part, but then this other child might be going from different things all the time. It could be a bit different next year when they do start school, because as I said, it's more of a year level, a whole activity for each, like for the whole class to join in, rather than having to choose where you sit and go and play with. So it could also be a little bit better next year. But in saying that, obviously, if you had some further concerns, you're more than welcome to send us an email or seek further help.
One other thought just with regards to the social skills question is the use of names and how important it is for a child to be able to use their friends' names. So often children will just respond better when spoken to directly. So hey Ben, or hey whatever, like when a child knows that they are known by someone else, it just becomes a lot easier for them to accept the friendship attempt as well. So the next question is, what are some strategies that we can give when they are at school and experiencing tricky social situations or feelings? Jason?
Okay. So on my side of thing, I think, yeah, we have to let the children know, first of all, they should not be harmed, in terms of physical attacks, and things like that. They should be safe. And the next thing is for them to develop help-seeking behaviors. So are they comfortable in talking to the teachers? If not, are they comfortable telling the parents and, having parents maintaining a good relationship with the school and letting the school know? Sometimes it's good to encourage our kids to talk about their feelings at home, okay? So at least, they have a space to talk about what they're thinking and feeling. And I guess as parents, it's good for, for parents to just encourage them and even do some role play with them, what happened at school, having them talk about the story of what happened. That's a really good thing to do as well.
And I'll just add as well, it is good to, like, up to a certain point, teachers are always there for you to be able to just raise some concerns, because I know some of my clients even have had a bit of help with social skills at lunchtime, or the teacher has just been able to pair them up with someone that they think might be a bit more of a social compatible relationship. So if it's getting, quite far into the year and you're still worried, definitely bring it up with the teacher, because also some kids do come home and say, I don't have any friends, yet they might be playing with people at school, and it might just be that they need to understand a bit more about what a friendship is, rather than thinking that they don't have friends.
Yep, we have another question about twins who will go to school next year. The older one is currently replying a little bit for her sister in kinder, and they seem not to have many friends now. We are going to separate them into different prep classes. What are some good skills to encourage them and to help them settle in when they separate next year? So I think it's a brave and good step. So choosing to separate the twins so that they can be a bit more independent. I think what might be really good to do, again, so some of the steps that we've talked about before, getting each twin ready, knowing what some of their classmates' names will be, being very familiar with the teacher, and knowing what to say to ask for specific things. So the younger twin now might need to learn some skills in being assertive, knowing how to say no when she's not happy about something, and some of those social skills discussions that we've had before around commenting on play, joining in play, and some of the emotional coaching when she comes home might be very beneficial for her. And a few more thoughts, Jason and Claudia.
I was just going to say, and let them both know that they're both at the same school and can play with each other at lunch, or that they've still got each other to lean on if they are feeling a bit nervous. However, they will be able to make their own friends in their own classes, and they'll be able to see each other in the playground still, or they'll get to go to school together or come home together, just to keep a little bit of familiarity with them.
I used to tell some of the kids a story about, how they are all operating their own hot air balloon and driving that into school. So yes, they are learning to operate their hot air balloons on their own, but they are, a group of friends. Everybody will be in their own vehicle, in their own cars. And, now that they are at school, although they're operating on their own, but then they're still together with a lot of people. So, pointing out stories through metaphor to them, allowing them to know that they're not alone and still, they will be operating on their own. It's a good idea.
Another question, my daughter tries to do everything very quickly and just to be the first to present her work. Is it a matter of concern which needs to be addressed?
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, so my daughter tries to do everything very quickly and be the first to present her work. Is it a matter of concern which needs to be addressed? So I think from my perspective, that's a bit of teaching on turn taking will be necessary. So turn taking being a social skill that we we emphasize that everyone gets a turn, and sometimes you might be first, sometimes you won't. That goes kind of hand in hand with some of those games that we talked about with winning and losing. Playing games with her to show that sometimes you'll have to wait your turn because other people want to show what they have done as well. So with regards to, is it a matter of concern which needs to be addressed? I would say it would be useful, just for your daughter's benefit, to just try and just start showing her things at home now, like, okay, now it's my turn to talk, now it's your brother's turn to talk, or look, it's daddy's turn to show and tell, and just give her a bit of training in getting a bit less time, perhaps, or a bit more waiting time before she gets to present her ideas and thoughts.
And just another thing I would say with that is that if she is rushing, like a lot of kids do like to rush, they're kind of like, okay, I want it to be finished and done. To just remind them that, you know, they have a certain amount of time to do something, and that even though they might finish early, like especially in school, they still have to wait around for everyone else to finish. So if the rushing part is actually making their like writing or their drawing a lot messier than what you think it could be, trying to demonstrate like taking time with them to do it, modeling the behaviors that you kind of think would be necessary for her when she's starting school, and and just really reinforcing the fact that especially in school, if she finishes a task early, that doesn't always mean that she'll just get to do a lot of other things. She'll have to wait for some of the others in the class to finish as well.
Another question around doing things slowly. So my son is doing everything so slow, especially eating his meals. Is there anything we can do about that?
With that, I would say there's a few things. So there's a few factors to consider. Is he eating them slowly because he's getting really distracted by other things? So a lot of kids you might find might be eating something or drawing or doing a task, and then they stare off into space, so they get distracted by whatever else is happening in their environment. So if that's one of the reasons, trying to limit the distractions is always really good. And another thing is putting timers in place. So sometimes being able to say, all right, we're going to try and do this within this amount of time. You can Google a lot of visual timers. They're really effective because they show the kid how much time they've got left. And even though at the start it might not work for them to just be really fast, trying to make a little bit of a game out of some things. Obviously with eating, you don't want them to choke, but just trying to, if they're getting a bit distracted by the TV on, or they're getting distracted by like the window or something, trying to put them in a less distraction, a place that's got less distraction, and also by, maybe putting a bit of a time limit if it's a drawing task or a writing task, or getting dressed. Let's see how fast we can go to get dressed if they're able to do all the steps without getting them done the wrong way.
Another question on my son is very descriptive and can go on chewing people's ear off when explaining something or answering a question. While it's a school readiness tick in many ways, how can we help him be more concise so the teacher doesn't stop asking him or cut him off and hurt his feelings in the process? So I think that's covered under, again, a social skills skill of again, keeping the topic and also being concise. So that's something that I would practice at home. So when you're reading books with him and telling stories and you're asking him for a thought, you might be extra specific. So using your WH questions to ask, where did these people go? And if he starts going off on a tangent, you can then remind him, Mommy asked you, where did he go? So we're just talking about the place, and being very specific about reminding him what the initial topic or question was about. I think being concise is really a communication skill and a language skill that needs to be practiced. It's sometimes beyond a child also to know that other people have stopped paying attention, and sometimes pointing that out might actually help. So doing a little role play with puppets perhaps, and showing him, look, this puppet's just talking and talking, but look, this other puppet's actually looked away already, or he's not paying attention anymore, and actually talking about how when the teacher asks a question, we might try and give something short and sharp, and that's something we can practice together. Now we have a few more questions, but Shireen, how are we going to go for time? Might need you to unmute, Shireen.
Sorry, I think we'll have time to just take a few more and then, yeah.
No worries. All right, so the next one we have is my daughter always wants to teach other kids how to do things, even simple things that the other child is already doing successfully right at that moment. For example, swinging on a swing. Should I do something about this? I'm wondering if as she learns things at school, this could become disruptive.
Yeah, right now I'm thinking about, what are we doing to help them learn, social thinking, to think in another person's perspective, by observing other people's facial expression, words of, word choice. Are people actually, liking what you're doing? So like taking a look at, how this kid, understands other people's emotions and thinking will help them know whether or not they should continue to perform expected behaviors. So we need to teach them to know what is unexpected, in a social play situation.
Okay, the next question is, my son is not interested in crafting, using scissors or drawing. I try to praise him and encourage him when he does, but he's still reluctant. Claudia?
I guess like there's a lot of children who don't love tabletop tasks. Sometimes it's just that they don't like doing them at home and they don't mind doing them at kinder. So one thing I'd suggest is just maybe have a bit of a chat with the kinder teacher and see if they are either participating or able to do, get the kinder teacher to try and involve them in maybe one task every once a week or something like that. That's a tabletop task. Another thing is to try and make it a little more fun, I guess. I know some kids find it really fun anyway, but using like Play-Doh, and you can use scissors with Play-Doh to cut pieces off, making it more of a play scene. So it might be that you get a big box to make something out of, but your child has to cut and paste and stick and draw things onto whatever the box is that they're going to make things out of. So really trying to involve, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to sit at a table to try and do all the tasks if you're trying to just get a little bit of them, their involvement. And the other thing that I'd just suggest is that it might be that they find it a bit too complex for them. Or they find it a bit boring and therefore they think that they don't actually want to give it a go. So sitting down and doing a lot of modeling with them and trying to see the best time of the day to do it. So if they're feeling happy and relaxed and they've already had a bit of a run, don't try and make your kids sit down for more than 10, 15 minutes. If that's, even that's quite a long time for them to sit down if they're not one to want to sit down for that long. So get them to sit down, do one task with a timer, and say, we're only got to try and cut one part of this sheet out and then you can go and play outside. So just trying to take step by step. And once their confidence builds a little bit more, they might actually find that they like doing the activity and therefore might try a little bit more.
I'll just bring up a bit of a resource that I've discovered recently as well. So my daughter was completely not interested in doing any drawing at all. But over this COVID period, when we've had so much time at home, I've actually put her onto this YouTube program that I've heard about called Art for Kids Hub, and it's been really, really useful because they draw very motivating things step by step. So basically, even line by line, they draw superheroes or Disney princesses, and she's just taken to it so well. And if I were going to put her on any screen time at all, it was actually quite useful to put her on something that develops her fine motor skills. So I'll just put that one in the chat in a second. But I'll just read out that final question here. So how would you help a child who shows the tendency to throw things and push others?
I think that goes back to, understanding what is expected and unexpected. For some kids who are finding it a little bit more challenging to comply to your instructions through auditory input, maybe it's a good idea if we can show them, visual pictures of what kids are supposed or expected to do. If that's in the home environment, we can use strategies like timeouts to let that person or let the kid know that he or she should not be doing some of these behaviors at home.
And another thing I'd just add to that as well is, again, you can maybe find some social stories. There's heaps of social stories online. So you can pick up ones about like pushing and kicking and even winning and losing. And sometimes there's some good ones that you can get for free. And they're a good one to read to reinforce a behavior that you want your child to be able to do, rather than, like a behavior to reinforce, I should say. Yeah.
And sometimes these social stories might also cover the words that we can use instead of the aggression. So why are you throwing something? I could say instead, I don't like what you're doing, or why are you pushing someone? You made me angry. So actually giving them the words to use to express their feelings might give them an alternative to just a physical action. Another question here. When I ask my son, how was his day? He always says nothing, or I don't remember. What can I do to encourage him to open up?
Is that one yours, Venetia?
Yeah, I can answer this one. So with asking children how their day was, I actually think that this is something all my clients might say to me, like, oh, it's like they don't remember, or they don't know how to say it. But my response to that would be that in a child's day, especially at kinder, there are so many events that follow each other, that mesh into each other. So children at this age have a very low capacity basically to distinguish sections of a day, to be able to tell you the sequence of events that happen. So I'd say to a large extent, that's very normal. So for you to say what happened today, can't remember, or I don't know. What I was suggesting before with giving them a bit of a sentence starter or a story starter, I find like it helpful when my kinder sends me story park photos, and the teachers actually send a sequence of events. I actually use that to prompt my child. So I go, I saw that you did some painting today, and I just leave it at that. So avoiding questions sometimes and making comments about what you've seen might actually get them quite excited. And my daughter will basically say, how did you know? Like, did you see? How did you know? Did someone tell you? And from that, I actually get a lot more out of her, rather than, sort of probing and asking what happened. No, tell me what happened. Also, if you start off with an emotion story starter, so you might go, what was the worst thing that happened today? Or can you tell me if anything made you upset today? So that's an unexpected question again for them that will possibly get you a response that's more focused on an emotion or an event, as opposed to a sequence, which is a lot harder for them to remember. I can't see any further questions. Does anyone have any final ones?
And otherwise, if you do have questions later on, as I said, I think this PowerPoint, Shireen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, might be going somewhere.
Yeah, it's currently actually being recorded, so it'll go up on the Nillumbik website.
Yep, perfect. So then I can just go back, and then there's the Health Ability or Carrington Health. If you give them a call, they'll be able to redirect you to whoever services that you need, or otherwise, as I said, you could email Venetia and I if you have any specific questions about school readiness, or in particular the school readiness program, if you were interested in participating in that.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining tonight's session. I hope you found it quite useful. I know I certainly did. And thank you for your time.